Greetings and welcome to Project Pandora. I am Darkling and this is Ark Survival Evolved. Today I will be starting on my first recorded base build, so stick around and hopefully you'll learn a few new tricks along the journey. Okay, so as you can see, I've already made a little bit of a gantry just to start the project off. You can see my little starting base over there just for my intros. That is a bit of an example of what we're actually going to see. This is a small scale version of it, but we're going to get into a large scale. So what I've done is I've set up some storage at the start of the gantry. Now I've put all the resources in here I think I'm going to need for at least for starters. Now it may look like there is a lot of items in here. I will guarantee you that I will probably run out of some, if not all, of the materials. You'd be surprised how many materials you can actually go through on a bigger project. So with any luck we'll have at least enough for most of it. So I'm just having a quick run through just so you can see what I've hidden away in some of these boxes. Some of them are just completely empty. A little bit of tech stuff. This is actually how I lay out my storage normally. I like to keep things fairly well organized and structured in a similar manner for each project that I do. So I've got foundations, ceilings, walls, and then miscellaneous, and then hatches and door frames. So that's the normal layout I use. So for starters, we're going to go straight to the foundation work, and we're going to need a stack of 100 of the glass foundations, and we're going to literally just dive right in. Okay, so as you can see, I've already got that little step already set up, so we're just going to go straight out from here. Now I'm going to go most of the way across the bay, or at least halfway across, and we're going to try and find, maybe not center, but fairly close to it. So you'll see me make a lot of mistakes along this way because I'm not going to be doing any cutting if I can help it, unless something can the real world comes up. So I'll be making a lot of grammar mistakes, a lot of vocal mistakes. I'll probably cough, sneeze, who knows. I'll do my best to make sure everything's muted. So what I'm doing is I'm running my first lot of foundations to the center. Now I have put a few tech troughs around the place just because I've actually run into a few problems with spawns in here. I don't want to have to fight them off while I'm doing this. So I think that's probably about far enough. I might have to move that tech trough at some point. I've got it there just blocking spawns at the moment. The range of the spawn blocking on a tech trough is quite considerable, so it makes a really good spawn blocker for this sort of project. Whoops. So as you can see, we've already gone through half a stack and we're barely into the project. Like I said, you can go through quite a few materials when you're doing a project like this. Now the reason I'm doing this particular step in glass is I do plan to make most of this invisible. There will be a section around the outside of the foundation work that will be visible most likely, because I will be attaching a C-pen to the bottom of this. So this will be a hanging base. I'm sure I'll be opening a Pandora's box of problems, and it will also be a bit of a floating mountain, so I'm sure you will get the references there. So we've got 25 left. I will just do a few cross pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to consider that the central line, and I'm going to count out 1, 2, 3, 4, and then on the 5th I'll place one down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and on the 5th, and again. Okay, so that's going to be my outer line for now. So what I'll need to do is go and grab some triangles foundations. Now I've placed this quite close to the water so I can jump out of it nice and easily. I've got my flippers on, so it will slow me down just a little bit. Foundations. So I'm going to take half a stack of foundations, and then probably half of one of those as well. I really love this game. The underwater effect is really cool. I don't like being underwater, especially out in the ocean, because everything wants to kill you. You don't have time to stick around and enjoy it all that much. Okay, so what I'm going to do is every 4 I'm going to place a triangle, and then place another 4. Oops, I don't know where that snapped. I guess that went underneath that one, perhaps. There it goes. I don't want to have too many stray foundations here. It causes problems for snapping later on if I do any extra foundation work. I don't want to have to deal with that, and I don't want any extra structures where possible, because the more structures you have in a bigger build, the more problematic it is. So what you want to do is try and cut down on any problems as early on as possible. Okay, so as you can see, I've got the central ring done. I will be moving this because that's going to be an annoying spot. I will put it in about here. That should be out of the way, and I'll start a run of triangles. Now I won't be filling this whole middle piece in. I'm just wanting it to be a supporting structure for anything above it without going too crazy. This is what I refer to as a lattice work foundation. So the entire structure will be based off the lattice work. I don't want to fill it all in. If I fill it in, that's a lot of extra tiles that I just don't really need. I have used the lattice work technique in the leveling the foundations video that I did, the tutorial. So if you haven't seen that, you might want to have a nosy at it at some point. It's basically how to build on rough terrain. It's kind of a similar the base setup as this, however it covers going upwards and over bits and pieces. So I've run out of triangles there, so I'll just place all of these. Oops. I don't really like building with flippers on if I can help it. They tend to be a tad jumpy for me, but I'm sure I'll get used to it. It might be a bit too many. 3, 4 on the 5th. 5th. Okay, so that was too many. So I'm only going to do it out to this point so far. I have a feeling I will be coming back to the foundation work at some point and either extending it or adjusting the outside run. But I'm going to just start with running 15 squares out from that central ring. Now I'm going to call the central ring that section that this one here that has just the one triangle. So if you're building like this and you say put 3 and then a triangle, 3 triangle and then do a loop, or 2 triangle, or even just 1, anything within that space has to be a triangle. It's just a way of things. Once you've used triangle pieces for a while, you will get the hang of how everything goes together, and things will actually speed up for you. Okay, so just one more foundation to put down, and we're going to get another load. Now, we will go through a lot of foundations for this, but once they're all invisible, the actual FPS drop should be minimal. I've done a few bases where I've used glass foundations quite extensively, and then when it came to the end steps, it was starting to get a little bit laggy, and then once all the foundations got turned invisible, it was much smoother. So I'm going to take a few extra of those. Just watching my weight. I want to be as full as I can without slowing myself down too much. I'm going to finish filling in that central section, or at least filling in as much as I'm going to. Okay. I prefer strafing when I'm placing this rather than moving backwards and forwards. When you're underwater, if you move backwards and forwards, you tend to have a height change more drastically so than if you're just going side to side. So we're going to use that to our advantage. Hopefully we don't have to deal with any sharks or manta getting into the bay. I'm hoping that I put enough tech troughs down to block the spawns. Okay, so that might be enough. I'm just going to add a little bit extra in just to be sure the central part will be supported. I like to keep a pattern and that's not keeping to it. Sorry, I'm a bit pedantic about certain things. I like to have a certain method about the way I produce stuff. So that part there's sorted, so we'll continue on this run. So we're out one section. I'm going to call a section up to the cross part. So it's 1, 3. On the cross section. Oops. Excellent, stops before the rock. It's annoying if you have to go over a rock, but sometimes you just have to do it. Excellent. Now I do talk to myself a little bit, so hopefully it won't be too much garbage, me just mumbling or the likes. Oh, looks like we've got some underground snaps. I don't want the underground ones, so I'm just going to pick those up. Now it will happen, you'll get ones that you can't pick up, or at least you didn't notice that you placed them, or you can't tell where they snapped. Just pick up as many as you can and move on. Now there are techniques for actually sinking foundations if you ever want to do such a thing. I haven't done a tutorial on it yet. I may cover it on a later video, but I'm not sure whether I want to or not, because I know a lot of admins don't like the sinking of foundations, because if someone doesn't clean up their build properly, you tend to end up with foundations under the ground and then they have to go looking for them, which is quite a considerable pain. Whoops. Especially when it blocks other people's builds. When you're on a project on your own single player, it works out quite well, so maybe I'll get around to doing it. Okay, so it's the 5th, so I'm going to have to deal with at least one rock. No, come on, snap in. Does not want to snap in, so I'm going to have to come out from the other side. That's fine. Can live with it. Now the thing with building, I've said it before and I'll say it again, don't get frustrated. As soon as you get frustrated, your build will get very frustrating and you won't have any fun with it. I really enjoy the process of building. I couldn't tell you which part I do like. It's quite strange. Sometimes I get very frustrated with certain parts of it, certain aspects that just aren't working for me. But you've just got to try and not let the frustration set in, otherwise you'll have to walk away and have a break from it and come back. So, like I said, try not to get frustrated, but you probably will at some point. So while I've got some extra of these tries, I'm going to fill in some of the blanks. Bit of a lag there for some reason. This is actually hosted on the computer sitting next to me as a dedicated session, so there shouldn't be any, if at all, server lag. Okay, so that's all the materials I brought with me, so we're going to need some more. I'd say at least another 100 possibly 150 more square foundations for this. Now, when you're building materials, estimate how many materials you think you're going to need and double it. I often triple it just because I'm building on such a large scale. I have a lot of carry weight too generally. I'm not actually sure how much carry I've got on this. It's usually about 600. So I try and aim for at least being able to carry a stack of 100 building materials because I don't like too much backwards and forwards travel. Now, in my tutorials, I've spawned stuff on the fly. I won't be doing that on this project. I have spawned the materials in. This is just a spawn build. I'm not in it for the grind. But all the materials I'm going to go backwards and forwards from the chests for, so it's virtually what you would be doing if you saved up the materials for your build. This is how I normally build on a server. I'll save up as much resources I think I need, double it, triple it, whatever it has to be done, and then I'll go ahead and start the build. I don't like starting when I've got stuff or materials, unless it's obviously a starter box or something like that. I prefer to bulk build all as much of the materials as I can, just to keep the actual construction process flowing quite nicely. Because if you have to stop and start, that's when problems I find start to occur more often, especially when you're doing a symmetrical build where you're attaching towers in a funny way with overlapping techniques and things like that. I did an overlapping technique for a set of towers once, and oh, what a nightmare that was. I built one of the towers and then something came up and I had to leave it, and when I came back to actually do the other two towers, I could not remember how I'd snapped them, so I had to spend an extra half hour just staring at it trying to work out where the snap points were that I'd used. Because once you start overlapping stuff, it starts to get a little bit more confusing because you can see so many things overlapping that they kind of blur together. Okay, so we've done the initial square foundation run, so now we're going to do the triangles. I'll start with the outside. Oops. Again, I don't want any stray foundations if I can help it. Oops. I'll go back and tidy some of these up afterwards, I think. I'll speed this build up. Oh, come on. It's a lot easier when you're above ground. I have to slow it down. I think the server's not keeping up with me. The computer it's hosted on isn't the best in the world. This machine isn't even the best by a long shot. Okay. Again, we're going to go with the strafing. Oops. Strafe too far. Okay, so it looks like I'm going to have a few problems here. Now I might be able to go through this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the ground so that my character doesn't move in an up and down motion. Because when you're in the water, you tend to move around a little bit more than you planned. So if you go straight down to the ground and you're actually touching the ground when you're cycling through the snaps, it doesn't have the tendency to move around as much on the actual snap points themselves. Hopefully that makes sense. Oops. Bring that up in a minute. I try and, depending on what I'm doing, I try to leave a few mistakes to clean up at a time so I don't waste my time getting the demo gun out. Okay, so I'm going to need to grab that other stick. So as you can see, I haven't even done a round around the outside and we've already gone through 100 tries. Why is that not placing quick enough? Now, I've had people actually that are very surprised with how fast I can construct foundation work for builds. So for those of you out there, you'll actually be seeing how it all goes together normally for me. It is a tad faster when I'm not talking. I'm usually concentrating a little bit more just to make sure I don't make any mistakes, so that the build doesn't slow down too much. I try and pump out a build quite quickly because I like to see the not necessarily the end result, but I like to see it actually coming together, and I don't like people to see my builds halfway through, or until they're about halfway through, until you can actually see some structure. So if I'm playing on a server, I will be very quiet when I start a build until I get a reasonable amount into it, until it actually starts looking like it is something interesting. This is just so when people see it, they go from seeing nothing in the location to something of a reasonable size. Okay, so we're going to need some more supplies again. So we made one run with... oh, I'll grab that while I'm here. Actually no, I'll grab it when I come back. I made one run with 100, so we're probably going to be needing at least another couple hundred. Oops, wrong one. So each time we go inwards, we're going to use less and less of the foundation work. Now, I will use a set time of day again at some point. I want to make sure that the lighting is still really good. What time of the day is it now? 4 o'clock. I might do another set time of day now. Okay, they got a little bit darker. Set the camera a little bit. And as I said, I am using cheats for this. I'm not. I'm on infinite stats and God because I don't want to have to stop to eat or drink. Not that drinking would be a problem at this point. With a project this size, if I was doing it as a complete build along with the harvesting and everything, it would be a very, very long series. I'm not even sure how long this is going to take. I'm going to try and... why is it doing that? Just sunk some foundations in there. Right. I'm going to try and keep it as short as possible. No, that's where that snapped. There it is. Oh, there must have been a stray foundation there from earlier. Now, I did do some recording of this prior to this. This is actually the second time I've done the foundation work. I put the foundations down, did the recording, everything went really well, and at the end I stopped to have a look to make sure everything was okay with the recording, and OBS mysteriously had muted my microphone, so I did the whole build and all you got to see was me placing it and no talking at all, which isn't a bad thing because, let's face it, who wants to listen to me all that long? Except maybe you guys, because you guys love it, don't you? You'll notice I go a little bit faster when I'm actually not talking. I'm sure if I could put some lovely soft music or something on while I do this, I could probably do it without talking, but I do try and talk about what we're... oh, we're out of... next stack. I do try and talk about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Now, as I said before, this is a lattice work foundation, so I've got a lot of experience with building foundations in the Hex. Well, foundation work in general. So as you can see, the gaps between those runs and the gaps in here, I will not be filling those in. They will work just fine for supporting structures over the top. Because I'm not actually connecting to the foundation except in the center, I can get away with a lot more. Like I could actually put square foundations down here, and if I was doing that I wouldn't have to actually pay so much attention to the shape of what I'm doing, because I always reflect the shape in the foundations to what I'm going to have above it. I will be doing that with this project, even though I could get away with not doing it, because it's a good habit to have. Because I know roughly what I'm going to be building, I can set it out to a certain degree. Oh, is that it? No, I've got 1, 2 more. I would use less foundations if I did it in the square, but it's a lot easier to work out when it's all exactly the same. So from the top I could say I need 3 sets from the central ring, and I can match it to the top and go, well, I'm going to need a few extra runs. And okay, so that looks like, oh, I can take that away. Okay, so that is the foundation work all latticed in place. So next thing we do will be to add the ceilings out to the center. So I can drop off these extra foundations. I'm going to swap to stone ceilings. Again, we can carry 100 of those. I am supporting the full 600 weight like I was saying. Need those. I might just drop the gamma back down. Now I've got to be very careful of the gamma. It tends to record a bit darker than I actually see it, so it looks fine to me and the recordings are a little bit dark, so it tends to be a little bit of messing around with that. Oops, getting a bit fast there. There are times where I start placing faster than the game likes me to, and I'll end up not placing something and running off a platform. I tell you what, the tech boots are a miracle for builders. The amount of times that I've killed myself falling off my structures, they are such a lifesaver. That looks about right. Yep. Again, I'm lining this up with the foundation work. Now, you can hear that my footsteps are actually still sounding as if I'm standing in water. I kept the foundations and ceilings as close as I could to the water because I like to have a definitive sea level kind of thing going on. Especially when I'm doing bridges, because I always make sure there's at least 4 to 5 tiles above the water. 4 is probably the number I'll go with on a lot of builds, just because you want somebody that's got a raft to be able to travel underneath the bridge with an RG or Pteranodon or something else on their raft. If you have your bridges just above the water, like I've seen quite a few people actually do, you're actually causing more problems for other players, because when they try and go under the bridge it just knocks their dino off, which is a real pain. Okay. Almost got the gantry sorted. Now I'm not going to rail this just yet. I'm not 100% sure quite what's getting added onto this level just yet. I will be basing this build around the new tech elevators. They are brilliant. They're not very big, so I'm going to be using arrays. But I think once we've got the arrays in place, I think we should be able to teleport just fine. I did a bit of testing when they first came out, and you can put large dinos up and down them, but some of the dinos that have a very long base on them do tend to be a little bit more problematic to actually get to register. Okay, so we've got all the ceilings worked out. I'm going to connect the I'll take a couple of those. How many I'm actually going to need? Take 20 of those and a bunch of these. Now, one of the things I do when I'm constructing big bases is I'll use as many of the XL parts or large parts as I can where I can. However, I will also do at least one run of single walls. Now, there is a method behind this madness. I think I'm going to start it on the outside run. Oops. Start it on the outside run. Now, do I start it on... No, I'll do it on the complete outside. Okay, the reason I do a single row or two of regular walls is sometimes if you accidentally pick up one of these large walls and go to replace it down, things like right. No. I'm going to take a few extra out of here. I don't want to have to mess around with the snap points. Yeah, sometimes when you pick up the large walls and then put them back down, they don't snap properly. It's not a huge major, but if you've got a line of just single walls somewhere, I'm going to put one here. Oh, come on. If you've got this in place, then if something does go wrong and you've picked up a few things you shouldn't have, you've got a line of safety from them, because the large walls, the way they snap, they don't snap at the top very well, and you can't snap them downwards, so sometimes you'll get a little bit of a glitch. Just a matter of working around such things. And once you've got a bit of experience with Arc, you'll actually learn to... It doesn't look right. Okay, so it's that colour I need. Once you've had a bit of experience, you'll start to work around these problems. Okay, so that's going to be problematic in there. Let me snap, so I'll be coming downwards from the top on that one, I think. So what I'm doing here is I'm making my central foundation work. This is going to support the entire structure. I'm doing this quite large in the middle. I don't have to. I could get away with doing it in the smaller bit, but I'm wanting a nice wide base on the foundation work just so I know if there's any problems down here I can sort them out without a problem, without things de-snapping. Oops. Oh, awesome. Now when I do this without recording, these things often just go snap, 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 and as soon as you start recording something like this, everything starts snapping funny, probably because I'm not concentrating on what I should be concentrating on. Okay, that's all those I've got. I'm going to do another run. It didn't snap in the right place. I'm going to do another run of regular ceilings. Oop, too high. And I can now place those square ceilings back in. I removed those just to stop any snap point issues. It does happen from time to time. The easiest way is to just remove the problem altogether. I'll just hop on top and make sure those are snapped in the right places. Yeah, that does look pretty clear. Okay, so I'm going to need a bit more in the way of walls. Carry as many as I can. I might just lose the extra of those for now. when you're building, always pay attention to your hotbar. If you're building with something in the 6, 7, 8, 9 slots and you're doing a lot of it, swap it to your easier to access ones 3 and 4. You don't want to have to mess around too much if you can help it. And I guarantee you, if you think you're only going to place 1 or 2 of something and you decide I won't move it, you'll probably have to replace it a few times, because like this it's just not snapping in the place that you want it to. Now what I've been doing is I've been hitting Q just before I place it, because I'm moving around. The snap points jump around a lot, like I was saying. So by hitting the Q literally just before I actually click to place it, it will do the initial flip over that I need. Sometimes it doesn't work though. Depends how much you're moving. Oops. No, that didn't work. Ah, figures I had it in the right place and then I cycled it to a wrong snap point. So when I actually go ahead and finish the water pen side of things, I will probably open this up to being a pen for the small water dinos, maybe some dolphins or sharks, maybe just dolphins. It's really hard to be sure quite what I'm going to need. I have a basic idea of what kind of dinos I want to be able to fit into this particular base. This base should be able to hold at least 10 Rexes. I need more. Yeah, at least 10 Rexes. I want at least 3 Quetzals, maybe a Wyvern or 2, a bunch of Pteranodons, Thylaco, things that I myself would tame. I'm a big fan of Spinos as well, but I haven't actually used them as much lately since the Thylaco came out. I really love the Thyla. It is one of the most fun mounts to have. Although I've got to admit, since I've been playing Aberration, I have developed a thing for the Basilisk. It's not the most practical mount to have, but seriously, you're riding around on a giant snake. How cool is that? Okay, so another thing you could do is the section under here, if you don't want it for small water mounts, you could drop in some underwater cubes or pods. I call them underwater pods. I know other people don't, but that's the name that I always, for some reason, have used for them. Now, I don't think I'm going to be able to get it to snap in there. There is a way around it, where I'll just build from the top down. No, that's going to have to wait. It's fine. So what we'll do is we'll just get everything level with this section and then put the ceilings on top. It did not snap in the right place. Again. So apparently when I replaced those I had missed one of the walls. Not a big deal. You'll see my character punch the air a lot. That is generally what. Oops. That's generally because I'm trying to place faster than it's letting me. It's one thing I don't like about these large walls is you can place regular walls inside them, and if you're unlucky, when you try and pick up the regular wall, it will pick up the large wall instead, and anything connected to it will fall off. So again, we'll pop that back into place. There you go. I should have put that to my hotbar, but I didn't. Okay, so we want it to snap to here. What have I done there? Have I added too many large ones, have I? It's fine. Again, when you see mistakes, fix them. Don't mess around, just get in there and get them sorted. Now, I may run into some issues here with the tech elevators. I don't know if they necessarily work underwater. I will have to do a bit of testing on that. If anything, I can just raise up a little bit of land. Well, I say land. So what we want is ceilings. I'm taking a couple of squares. Oh, I should drop off the walls first. And probably half a stack of... That will take a full stack of those. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in that section in the middle. Shouldn't take too long to get that sorted. Now I need to make sure I'm snapping it to the same as what I've got here. That is my ground point I'm going to work from. Now when you're going and using foundations like I do to run, like obviously I've snapped those all perfectly. I've snapped the ceiling off of an existing foundation, and yet out here when I start to put things down they aren't level. This does happen when you're changing levels a lot with foundation work. It does tend to be a little bit of a hassle at times. I'm not getting that lower snap point there. I'm going to have to skip that bit. You do get a little bit of variance. That's why when I'm building a bridge I will build the foundation work and then run on a line of ceilings across just to make sure everything's lining up properly, and then from there I can work out the extra supports. What have I done wrong? That's not meant to be there. They're meant to be squares. No wonder it looks funny. Now, because I was looking back at the triangle, it snapped where I wanted it to, whereas if I look at it here, because I'm looking at the wall, it will try and snap it to the wall. So I'll get that higher snap. So sometimes you just want to fill in the central part first, and then go back and fill in the blanks. I really love how it does the wet stone look. I think it looks really cool. It's kind of strange that it doesn't do it for the whole lot. I do quite like the way it's done that. It definitely adds a certain aesthetic quality to it. It's the same when I'm building a lot of structures. I like building them into the beach. Like if I've built at the beach, I'll build it so that a bit of sand sticks through in some areas. I really love the look of that. It's one of those things that it makes it look a lot more real. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fill in this whole line around the center here. Oops. I need to bring some walls back to fill in that blank spot. I've had a lot of people ask me to do a build like this where I do it from scratch. Come on. And don't do any montages. As with the tutorials, that's how I've done them. I'm not skipping over things because if somebody new turns up and I've already covered the technique and they've missed it, they can, because I'm not cutting to the montage, they can still see the exact same thing over and over again. If you've seen it before and you're getting bored with it, fast forward. I'm not expecting you to watch every single second of all the videos that I release. I do this for fun, I enjoy building. I'm hoping other people enjoy the building process as well. Those of you that enjoy building as much as I do, you might have this running while you do your own builds. That's cool. I like the idea of that. When I first started out, I used to watch the Pooping Evolved guys play. I haven't watched YouTube vids very often for quite some time now. I do like seeing new builds, but I don't generally go looking for them. I will occasionally stick my head into people's streams and see what others are up to. I generally don't join very packed streams, so if you've got like a few hundred people in a stream, I generally won't stick my head in. Smaller streamers I'll have a look in and see what they're up to, offer some advice if they're needing it or wanting it. Some people just have rules that they just won't listen to anybody's suggestions, which is cool, you know, everybody has their own way of going. Come on, go. Whoops. Not quite sure what that actually snapped to there. There's a few funky snap points that I'm assuming are for pillars, perhaps? Occasionally it'll try and snap to them. Some are real obvious to see what it's snapping to, if it's obviously snapping to the side of one of the triangle ceilings. That's easy enough to work out. Doesn't look right. I'm going to place it anyway. Nope. But ones like that, it's got to be a pillar snap. It's not right. Now, I've seen a lot of people skip these sort of parts and not bother trying to get these level. Your base doesn't look as good when you do it like that. If you don't take the time to just make sure everything snaps properly where you can, there are going to be a few spots where you just have constant issues. You can snap to the opposite, which I've taught in a few videos. No doubt it will pop up on here. This particular problem I'm having right now, snapping to the opposite won't fix. Or at least it hasn't ever yet. Okay, what am I snapping to here? Okay, so I'm going to remove these 3 tiles. Okay, snapping to the wall, that's cool. I can snap to the opposite, there you go. That was snapping to the opposite, so as you can see it wants to raise up when I place it. Actually no, that one worked just fine. What I do is I place it down. If it snaps to a different spot, I will cycle through and then snap it to the spot that it keeps snapping to. Now I call it snapping to the opposite. I've never seen anybody use the technique before, and I've told a few people about it and they've all said I've never seen that before, and it speeds up your building considerably, especially when you get those funky snap points that just won't snap where you want, and you will get them. You will get them a lot. So when you have a method of dealing with them, it definitely takes some of the pressure off. So I'm going to take 40 is probably way too many of those, and because I'm snapping downwards, I'll take 20. I won't need the squares. I'm pretty sure I'm sorted with those. I love the weather on the centre map, it's brilliant. At least it isn't fog. I was watching a stream today and the girl that was streaming was saying that she actually quite likes the fog, especially in the redwoods. And I have to agree, it does look really cool in certain aspects, but when you're out and about, it's not the most ideal thing to have to deal with. Now, is it going to let me snap that central part in? No. Okay, so with this, I would find a spot here where I've got, it's a regular wall, so I'm going to pull that one out and go onto the inside. I'm going to see if I can get it to snap on here. And I can see that there's a corner there at the top where it's not filled in. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to cycle through the snaps to find a spot where it will actually place there. Basically I'm just spamming the Q key. May not be able to actually place it. It's fine, we can work around it, it's not a huge major. I do like to fill it in if I can. So removing the ceiling above is going to just drop that whole line. So that's going to be a no-go. We can deal with it. Actually, it does look a bit funny. It has not snapped the same as the rest. I think I might just... oh, it's a try, isn't it? You got any squares on me? I've just dropped them all off, didn't I? Okay, I'm going to have to deal with that because that's going to bug me. Actually, what I might do is... that side I had problems with. I'll take that one. Oh, I need two. Okay, so I'm going to pull this line out. This might actually help me snap things at the bottom too. So this is one of the methods I use if I have problems. I can't be sure it's going to fix it for sure. Okay, so as you can see, when you snap a ceiling on and then across a gap and then you snap down from the ceiling, it will align it as best it can with the wall that you've got. I think I may still not be able to get that spot. No, but at least the rest of the wall's lined up. And now I've got that spot sorted, I need to make sure I snap to the right spot here. Need to remove the extra bits. Snap to the wall, not to... or the upper wall, not to the lower one. Okay, that looks about right. So now I can remove these and I'll replace them at the top. Okay. Did I see something out of alignment there? No, it looks fine. Again, there must be a pillar spot. Oh, come on. Okay, so now we have the basic foundation. Some of this will come out again. I will be pulling some of it away and putting in the tech elevators, but that is the foundation work done for today. I'm going to leave the video at that. I hope you learned a few new tricks, or at least stuck with me for the journey. And if you like the video, make sure you hit the thumbs up button, make sure you subscribe to see the rest of the series, and I hope to see you again someday. If you feel like it, you can join my Discord, the link is in the description. I do a lot of screenshots and whatnot of other builds, and they will be in there. So take care and enjoy your building.